Jimmy Clausen and the Irish, a road test at North Carolina. College football presented by Cars.com coming up. Many of you will see Notre Dame in North Carolina to start, waiting on Texas and Oklahoma to end. Others will see Ohio State and Purdue coming up.
To the establishment they call the shoe. It's in Columbus, Ohio. The Purdue Boilermakers in town to take on the 12th ranked Buckeyes. And a sea of red and gray and white here this afternoon. Weather conditions, it is a beautiful day, 85 degrees. We'll get Jackaroot to talk more about this. The temperature on the field turf, though, is 103 degrees, which for this time of year, these youngsters are not accustomed to it being that high at Cunningham. Chris Wells, last week, the man they call Beanie, looked like his old self in Madison, Wisconsin, as they upended the Badgers. And Terrell Pryor, I want to get you to talk about him as well, the sensational freshman quarterback. Better every week.
And for Beanie Wells, may have to get 25 or 30 today. Herron, the backup running back, who had been getting some carries as he got more and more healthy with that ligament sprain in his right big toe. He still wears a protective shoe, and Jack will tell us how they do that. But for Terrell Pryor, it was a huge first start on the road last week against Wisconsin. Kind of an up and down game, but when they needed him the most, last drive they needed a touchdown, marched him 80 yards, finished it himself with an 11-yard run on an option. Expect to see a lot of option today against the Purdue rush defense that's very leaky.
Jim Tressel, the head coach here at Ohio State. And Jim's ball club just won the toss. And Jim said, hey, I want to put my freshman sensation on the field. We're not going to play defense first. We're going to play offense first. So they will get the ball. And on the far side of the field, his 11th year as the head man of the Boilermakers. 12th season, actually. He's been there for 11. And Joe Tiller, a really popular figure among coaches across the country, not just here in the Big Ten. It's his final rodeo. This is the last season that Joe is going to be standing on that sideline. Carson Wiggs has the ball teed up, and we are just about set to get this one underway. Maurice Wells, one of the deep backs, along with Lamar Thomas, an outstanding freshman who wears number 7. Not sure I've ever seen that. We got last-minute substitutions on the kickoff team. No flag came down as the kick goes at the goal line. And this is Thomas. Far sideline, 30, 35, and is upended at the 40. I don't know exactly what happened, but the kicking team, some wrong members were out there, and I mean just before it was kicked, we had people coming off the Ohio State sideline.
Yeah, there was confusion about who was going to be in that front line for Ohio State. A little surprised because it looked to me like they had 12 men on the field right when the ball was kicked as they were trying to make a late substitution, but there was no flag.
Terrell Pryor, freshman out of Jeanette, Pennsylvania. We get to see him first here on quarterback. 4th career start. Wells hit at the line of scrimmage, and Beanie Wells will be stopped for no gain. Anthony Haygood making the tackle. Will not be the last time we'll say his name today. Far and away the leader on that Boilermaker defense.
And for Ohio State, Terrell Pryor became the starter against Troy, and it was Jim Tressel was telling us he never even really made the announcement to anybody that he was going to do it. Wanted to see what the opening kickoff in that game would do. Of course, they got the ball out to the 40, so trotted out the freshman. And he added a wrinkle with Beanie Wells out. They said that Todd Beckman may have still been the quarterback if Wells had been healthy, but that was not the case.
Pass to the near sideline. That's Robisky. He will make the catch and step out of bounds at the 45-yard line. It's one short of the first down.
And these are the throws that Terrell Pryor is comfortable making. That's an out cut. And of course, Robisky, one of the most disciplined receivers in the country. His dad's an NFL wide receivers coach, so that's no surprise. But the thing that they are so impressed with Pryor is he's so conscientious about the passing game. He's really working hard to become as good a passer as he is a runner.
Purdue jams it up defensively and looked as though May had a movement on the right side. Ben Person may have moved, the right guard.
False start, number 63, offense. 5-yard penalty. Still, third down.
It was Ben Person, senior out of Xenia, Ohio, 6'3", 323 pounds. So they'll move it back 5 yards, and it'll be third down at about 5.5 for the first.
And that'll be interesting. Brock Spack brings in more defensive backs. The defensive coordinator for Purdue looks like he may bring pressure. That penalty allows them to bring it now.
It's Ballard in motion, the tight end. And the pass lobbed into the flat and hit immediately. Beanie Wells. That is a nice defensive play by Torrey Williams, the free safety, a fifth-year senior out of Cedar Park, Texas, which is a part of Austin, Texas, suburb there.
Such a nice job by Brock Spack. Because of the penalty, he quickly ran out his dime defense. He actually brought in 6 defensive backs, not 5, which is your nickel, and got that Speed Williams out there to stop the screenplay.
This is Trapasso with the kick, and the right footer not real long, and the spiral is not going to turn over. Got a hit at the 31, take a Purdue bounce, and the Boilers will take it over with very good field position. So Curtis Painter, we get an opportunity to see him as he is about to trot on the field, and if you'll check out the top of the screen, we will have the entire starting 11 coming up there in just a moment on offense for the Boilermakers.
Painter was benched last week against Penn State, has been struggling. His coach, Joe Tiller, very vocal this week that his struggles have been with accuracy, and they've been trying to light a fire under their senior quarterback.
Painter hands it off to Sheets, and there's not going to be much there. He'll take it to around the 30. So we welcome the audience just having watched the conclusion of the Texas and Oklahoma Red River rivalry down in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Ron Franklin, Ed Cunningham, and Jack Arute. And great to have you along, and a congratulations to Mac Brown and his Texas Longhorns on a 10-point win over a really good Oklahoma Sooner football team. Hook out pass in the flat, and it goes to Sheets. And he will take it to around the 34-yard line.
Sheets, a young man who last year shared carries with Jason Taylor. Of course, Taylor blew out his knee during camp, and Sheets has really improved both sides. The coaches from Purdue and the defensive coaches from Ohio State said that Sheets has made vast improvement in his final year.
Jermail Hines, number 7 in the secondary. We will see him virtually all day long with one less linebacker because of the spread formation by Purdue. Line to make is the 38. Blitz up the middle. Pass thrown a little too strong. Intended for Keith Smith. He's a junior out of Fort Hood, Texas. And that means punting time. So both ball clubs having to punt after a very short visit to the field offensively.
And the coaches from Purdue very frank this week with us and their quarterback Curtis Painter. And that ball was thrown a little hard. I would think that Painter, because of what happened last week against Penn State, his adrenaline is revving.
It's blocked, picked up by Ohio State, and he will score. So Ohio State gets the block. Sabino.
And Malcolm Jenkins did an excellent job of coming off. He was out there as a corner on the speed guy on the rush, and he timed it absolutely perfectly. And it's Sabino who takes it in for the touchdown.
Sabino, I was told by the broadcast crew of Ohio State, is the next great one, along with another young fellow we're going to be talking about this afternoon. They just line him up at linebacker. He got the carom and took it in for the touchdown. So Jenkins with a block. There it is right there. And watch Sabino, number 11. And this young man can run for a linebacker. Takes it in, 7-0 Bucks. Now there's a good look at Jenkins, who got the block. Malcolm, truly a hero on the defensive side of the ball. And in a story that appeared in the local paper this morning, he talked about his intensity as far as preparation and the fact that, just like a coach, he makes up his own notebook each week after watching video and taking notes on players. He obviously took a note on the kicker for Purdue. This is going to be returned from the 5. Tardy. And Tardy is going to be stopped at around the 25. Now let's take a look at the city X factor.
It all comes down to Curtis Painter and his accuracy. His coach, Joe Tiller, very vocal this week, saying that our accuracy perhaps is the thing right now is hurting us most. And it's been down in the red zone. He had a terrible interception in the third quarter against Penn State last weekend and was benched after that. So the coach, Joe Tiller, in his last year trying to get his senior quarterback going, 57.5%, well down from last year when he was in the mid-60s.
Well, second series for him, pass over the middle. This one much more like it. Greg Orton, who surprisingly, now he's the bell cow, there's no question there, but he only has 1 touchdown this year, Ed, which to me is shocking at this point of the season.
And the coaches have been talking about Painter, that he's in his head a little bit. Of course, he lost Dustin Keller, great tight end. He lost Dorian Bryant. They lost Jason Taylor to an injury. His top tight end, Kyle Adams, was injured, so he's thinking a little too much. The offensive line hasn't been great, so a lot has been put on his shoulders, and the coaches want him to raise everyone else's level of play up.
Sheets with the running play, breaks 1 partial tackle, and close to the first down at the 34. Thaddeus Gibson, a sophomore out of Euclid, Ohio, makes the tackle.
And Sheets, a guy who has had to take over the mantle, just under 100 yards rushing per game. And it was interesting talking to Jim Haycock, the defensive coordinator for Ohio State. Of course, they played at Purdue last year, and he said Sheets just looks like a totally different back. He is running so much harder with better vision. Very impressed with Sheets so far this year.
Interesting to hear a guy that is that accomplished to say it's his best season ever. Well, they think they can find a soft spot, and they do, right over the middle. And again, it's Orton. Third member of our broadcast team, Jack Arute. What do you got for us, partner?
Well, Ron, you're talking about Corey Sheets. You're talking about Joe Tiller's final appearance here in the Horseshoe. Remember when Tiller first came into the Big Ten, it was that pass-happy spread offense with no guys in the backfield. Well, isn't it a bit ironic that if he hopes to get to a bowl game this year, because of the problems with his quarterback and his receivers, he's going to have to rely on Sheets. Sheets is going to have to rush the ball quite a bit. Kind of a change from when he first started everybody in the Big Ten, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, Jack. And Sheets, you know, he's not a huge guy, but he's got a lot on his shoulders. Blitz coming off the corner, and the blitzing defender is the man who makes the tackle on Sheets after a gain of only 1, and that's Jermail Hines.
Interesting point by Jack that Joe Tiller in his last year, his last go-round, and of course, back in 1997 when he was hired, Lloyd Carr had the famous quote, 5 wide receivers are not going to work in the Big Ten with the weather we have. Oh, how wrong Mr. Carr was. Not only has it worked, but almost every team in the conference now runs some form of that. But because of the struggles at quarterback, you may see Sheets on a 3rd and short. Wouldn't be surprised if you saw a draw with Sheets here.
3rd down, the line to make is the 45 as Painter comes up to either point out a blocker or with an audible. Look in pass, ball is knocked away. Incomplete. It'll be 4th down for Purdue, and it's Chikwa. Chimde Chikwa, sophomore out of Claremont, Florida, making the defensive stop.
And it's just 2 slant patterns on the outside. And Painter wanted a pass interference. There looked like there was some contact early, but Chikwa did an excellent job of getting back around. And he's a guy who started to play a bunch with true freshmen last year.
So a fair catch is called for and made by Ray Small. And we'll take a timeout. 8:51 showing on our first period clock. It's the Buckeyes 7-0. So welcome back to Columbus, Ohio. 7-0. The Buckeyes on top by way of a blocked punt and an opportunity to see the freshman sensation at quarterback Terrell Pryor, and also a healthy Chris Beanie Wells again. Pryor keeps still on his feet, and the large one is going to take it all the way out to the 39-yard line. That's a 21-yard advancement.
It's interesting you say the large one, because the first time that I saw Terrell Pryor was against Ohio at the beginning of the season, and watching on TV, I thought, well, he looks slow. I don't get it. I don't see it. But then when you watch him on coach's film time and time again, people misjudge his speed because he is such a long strider. You saw it there. When he gets to the edge, there's nobody on defense who realizes just how fast this big man is.
Beanie Wells, they fake the handoff to him. Pryor avoids the defender and throws to a wide open receiver who is Posey. And Posey will go inside the 40 and down to the 38-yard line. 22 yards on this play. And if I had to guess, that last drive last week against the boys in Madison, Wisconsin, has really got a lot of carryover to what we're seeing today.
It's interesting when we talked to a bunch of the players yesterday how much they talked about being on the road at Camp Randall, and the freshman quarterback, who everyone was still kind of taking the wait and see approach, he marches them 80 yards for the win, and all of a sudden this season may have changed for Ohio State.
Beanie Wells pumping hard. He'll take it to the 34-yard line. Alex McGee, a senior out of Oswego, Illinois, makes the tackles. You look at Beanie Wells, you see the number of rushes, 168 yards last week, and at Camp Randall, that's saying a lot. That's a physical club and a physical place to play.
And what a difference a week makes. You put in the tape of last week's game against Wisconsin, they're all playing in a phone booth. Now you come out and you play Purdue, everybody spreads the field. It'll be a little different running today for Beanie.
Option play. Pryor on a broken play is going to be dropped for a 2-yard loss by Baker. So the top of the screen, you see the 11 starters for the Buckeyes today, the offensive unit.
And now you find yourself, because of that lost yardage, in 3rd and long, and they're still trying to find what Pryor is comfortable in. He works so hard in the passing game. He has a very good throwing motion for a tall quarterback. He doesn't wind up. He can really flick it. But don't be surprised in a situation like this if you don't see some type of lead quarterback draw. There is a back in the backfield.
Now look, a couple of stacked wide receivers to either side. Pryor over the middle, threw it too hard. Posey was the man he wanted. He really had some mustard on that one. And wrong sport, though.
and that'll be part of the process for Pryor to realize. And it looks like Ohio State thinking about going for it here on 4th, because you're in that tweener distance. If you punt it and it goes into the end zone, you only pick up about 15 yards of field position. And it's a super long field goal, but it looks like they're going to try it.
Well, guess what? Trapasso has come out. He's the punter, and he is going to act as the holder. Now, we did find out that when he comes in the ballgame, look for a possible fake on a field goal attempt. This attempt is going to be from 53 yards in the near hash mark. Let's see if they fake it. Well, that's what he was going to do, and someone blew the play. And listen to the boos from the crowd.
Well, the back judge came running in.
So forget the element of surprise.
Still 4th down.
Oh my God.
Jim Tressel had it dialed up, and the back judge came in, was trying to get his whistle in his mouth, and blew it late. And Trapasso didn't hear it, so he got up and started running the fake. And of course, with the delay of game, you would have punted it anyway. But if it was something else, they wouldn't have been able to run it, because pretty sure Purdue saw Trapasso take off.
Well, he's going to punt it anyway. So he pooches it, and a wobbly spiral is caught at the 16-yard line by Desmond Tardy. Let's take a timeout. 6:29 left. 7-0 Ohio State. Welcome back to Columbus, Ohio. Trapasso, the punter, sitting on the sideline. He came in as a holder a moment ago, and this is just a point that most of the times coaches share with us on the special plays that are going to happen. Yesterday, Jim Tressel said Trapasso's not our normal holder. Palma is, and if you see Trapasso, look for something sneaky. And they fooled themselves
yes,
when the clock ran out.
And a lot of times that happens in a fake play situation. Everyone gets so excited. Oh, here we go. We're finally going to run it. We're finally going to run it. Well, it takes too long and you get the delay of game, and now you can't run it because Purdue knows Trapasso's the faker now too.
And everybody else in the Big Ten. Painter's pass wide open and complete at the 42 is Keith Smith. Now oftentimes we say wide open, but I'm telling you, he didn't have anybody close to him.
Smith, the inside receiver, working one-on-one there with Hines, the safety. He spun him to the inside, got to the outside, and then cut back out. Actually, that was zone coverage, and Jenkins had to run deep, but that was a nice route by Smith.
Jenkins coming out of blitz off the corner. They go the other way, and Brandon Whittington will make the catch, and is going to be corralled by Chikwa. So let's take a look now with the Best Buy impact players.
Well, Ross Holman, a young man who missed last year with a turf toe. Sensational game last week against Wisconsin, 10 tackles. Of course, Laurinaitis, usually the leader out there, but he realizes Holman, the sophomore, is going to be a great one. And, of course, Malcolm Jenkins, who already made the big punt block, but last week also ended the Wisconsin game with an interception to win by 3.
Raise up and throw the ball quickly. Incomplete. Tardy, the the intended receiver. And of course the point there is Southern Cal was a ball club that when they won a national championship or two, this is one of the things they did as well as anybody. Take the snap, immediately step up and throw the ball. The defensive linemen and any blitzing linebackers are just deemed unnecessary. Not a part of the play. Right now it's third down, though, and they got to take it across midfield to the Ohio State 47. Ohio State showing blitz, and here they come off the corners. Pass has gotten away. Fade route. Did he catch it? High in the air. Yes. Greg Orton comes down with the ball over Malcolm Jenkins, and that is as good a matchup as you're going to find in this entire conference.
Jenkins just a half a second late finding the ball. And this is a good throw. Orton, of course, at 6'3", but this is not much of a mismatch. Orton, excellent job finding that ball.
Well, they get it off in a hurry. This is the first time that Purdue has been in Ohio State territory this afternoon. And this is the 5:06 mark of the opening quarter.
And Purdue, if you just got done watching the Texas-Oklahoma game, doing a bit like what Oklahoma does. You get a big play, go up and get the snap. Defense is tired. They're a little worried about giving up a play. And that's exactly what Purdue's trying to do early on.
Second down and 10 from the Buckeyes 32. The ball is loose after a hit, recovered by the Buckeyes at the 37-yard line, and it is Hayward who makes the recovery, and it's Thaddeus Gibson who pressured on the last play who makes the hit and causes the turnover.
And Gibson does an excellent job of getting upfield. He doesn't go, stays up on top of the... Well, that looked like it may have been an incomplete pass, but they called it a fumble.
So Hayward with the recovery. Buckeye football when we come back.
By Curtis Painter, the senior quarterback. It looked as we were going to break like it may have been an incomplete pass, but the ball did come loose. He was trying to throw it. Gibson did an excellent job of getting pressure, though.
So from the 37, Wells turns the corner, now comes out of bounds. And some of the Ohio State coaches look. Jim Tressel, he took exception to the fact that his man who already has leg problems or foot problems gets hit as he is out of bounds. Watch at the end of this play.
And watch the stiff arm. Beanie Wells is so strong in his upper body, goes to go out of bounds. It is a penalty. I think Jim Tressel's absolutely right. The man has given up. He's going out of bounds. Somebody dove at his legs.
I mean, Tressel sprinted all the way from the 30-yard line all the way up to midfield to talk with the official. This time Maurice Wells joins Beanie Wells in the backfield. So it's number 28 and number 34. Beanie Wells, and he'll take it to the 41. Jack Arute, what do you got for us?
Well, you're watching Beanie Wells, and remember, this is the shoe that normally most running backs would wear. It's about maybe 11 or 12 ounces. But since Beanie Wells hurt his foot, he calls it a toe tendon thing. He's had to wear a lineman's shoe. Now, Ed Cunningham knows all about these shoes. They're a lot more protective. He also wears a little bit of protection, a carbon fiber cover over that toe tendon area. But it has changed the way he runs. Did you see that stiff arm? He says, I got to rely on that a lot more now.
He's got a lot of those to go around, Jack. Wow. Big opening, has 5, has 10. He's off to the races, and inside the 20 at the 18, finally tackled Beanie Wells.
And it's that carbon fiber insert that Jack is talking about. When you watch Wells get into the open field, excellent job by the offensive line. He has a little bit of a hitch in his giddy up. It's because he can't flex off of that right foot. That big lineman cleat, I can tell you, they're not as fun to wear as those little light runners. But he's got that plate. He can't quite bend that foot, so he's going to look that way probably the rest of the season, I would think.
Maurice Wells into the lineup, gets the handoff, and Maurice will be stopped for no gain on the play. Matt Weiner, let's check in with you.
All right, Ron, here's our nominee for the Pontiac game-changing performance, and it comes from the 103rd Red River rivalry game. Oklahoma threatening to run away with it early when Jordan Shipley runs back the kick 96 yards. First kick return for a touchdown in series history. Texas wins. Vote for your Pontiac game-changing performance starting tomorrow morning at 9 by logging on to ESPN.com. Search Pontiac.
Boy, healthy Jordan Shipley has sure made a difference offensively for the Texas Longhorns this year. Well, we had movement. The play is going to be stopped, and now flag. That's going to be a face mask against McGee, and I think that maybe Purdue was offside as well. Lamar Thomas got the ball on the end around and got hit immediately. The penetration was so quick.
There are 2 fouls on the defense. Offside, number 45 of the defense. That penalty's declined. Personal foul, face mask, number 71 defense. That penalty's accepted. Half the distance to the goal. Automatic first down.
A little surprised that they didn't blow this dead. It looked like Keon Brown was into the backfield. A lot of times if a guy gets a little too clear, they'll blow it because of safety. And then McGee just reached up and grabbed that face mask and turned it around. Of course, there is no more incidental face mask.
If you just joined us, 7-0 Ohio State, 2.5 minutes to play, opening quarter, and the Bucks are knocking on the door again. First down inside the 10. Wells spinning around. He might have a half yard on the play, and that's about it, as Gwynn is there to make the stop.
And here is where I think the biggest difference for Ohio State will be now that Todd Beckman, the senior quarterback, has been supplanted by the freshman. With Beckman, you'd have thrown some fades, some slants. You would have dragged some people across the end zone, more of a pocket game in the red zone. Now your throwing game with Pryor becomes move the pocket, run pass option, and also the option game becomes more of the red zone offense.
Posey is the man who is split wide to the right, top of your screen. You see him at the 10-yard line. Now, if they throw to him, he's got a tough son to look back in. So Pryor's going to keep it, and he will have about 2 yards down in the vicinity of the 7-yard line, and it's going to be third down for the Buckeyes.
And that is the shotgun option, which, of course, with Todd Beckman, wasn't really a part of the plan. And the coach is very honest with us and said that if Beanie Wells had stayed healthy, Todd Beckman's probably still the quarterback.
But you're right.
Yeah, but they had to have a running option. They had to have someone that could make big plays. And now with these two guys, you're in what you would think is a passing 3rd and goal, but I think you might see option again.
Posey again, the band split wide to the right. Looking, that's who he goes to, intended for Posey, and the ball is knocked away. Nice defensive play by Brandon King, senior out of Warner Robins, Georgia. So it's going to be field goal time, and that means Ryan Pretorius, senior out of Durban, South Africa.
One of the things we notice watching film is watch the double feet set up and shuffle into that slant. This is one thing that the coaches are fighting with Pryor. He had the slant to Posey. He doesn't have to double set. Just set your feet and fire it. He still is in his head a little bit when he knows he's got something.
So it's going to be a 24-yard attempt from the far hash mark, and the kick is up, and he's perfect. We'll take a break. 57. No, we'll hold it right here. 57 seconds left to play opening quarter, and it is Ohio State with a new lead of 10-0. Well, tomorrow night at ABC, for all the teachers who've made a difference in our lives, comes a makeover that will proudly pay one of them back. An inspiring, all-new Extreme Makeover, home edition, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Central on ABC.
Interesting talking to Jim Bowman, the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach. Of course, Jim Tressel calls a lot of the plays, but we were talking to you about the extreme makeover that this offense has had to go through. Totally different offense now than you would have seen with Todd Beckman. And one of the things that they have to concentrate as we take a look at Jim Bowman on is not putting too much on this young man. He said you can draw up so much different offense when you have an athlete like that, but we just can't put too much on it because he's such a conscientious guy. We don't want him to have to think too much and study too much to get ready for games.
Well, the other thing is there's a brand new center, and he is right out of high school. Mike Brewster, freshman from Lancaster, Ohio. That's one of the changes. Last year's starter at center is just now getting back from an injury, and they're going to move him to guard as the kick goes 6 yards deep into the end zone. Coming up later, we'll be naming the Chevrolet Players of the Game. So as Ed talks about the changes, the modifications made on this Buckeye offense, we'll talk as the afternoon goes on about several of them and new people trying to fill new positions, and that's one of the reasons. It maybe sometimes it's smooth and other times it's not quite as copacetic.
And everybody's all worried about Ohio State being 10th in the Big Ten in offense, but their offensive line has not played great. They played well at the end of the game last week against Wisconsin. You got a new quarterback. You mentioned a true freshman center. A lot of changes going on at Ohio State since that USC loss.
Painter hands it off inside, and Sheets will have very little yardage. Lawrence Wilson, he's a junior out of Akron. Had a broken leg and was out. Actually, he was injured in the first game of last year and has come back. And Lawrence Wilson playing with a lot more confidence because, for good reason, he's getting more reps and learning the system. Big play right there. Second down, and they still need about 8 yards for the first down. 10-0, Ohio State on top. Painter, pressure from the backside. They throw back into that boundary, and Sheets is covered up in Ohio State jerseys. Marcus Freeman, the first man there, and again Thaddeus Gibson with good pressure off the edge.
Well, one thing they're doing with Gibson is they're walking him around. He's playing up as Freeman comes off. Did a nice job of submarining that screen, but Gibson very athletic. They're walking him around. He's playing well in space.
That is the end of the opening quarter. So at the end of the first quarter, Ohio State 10 and Purdue nothing. We'll be back with more from Columbus after this.
Cast is available in high definition. Brought to you by Pioneer's new Kuro.
So welcome back, Columbus, Ohio. Ron Franklin, Ed Cunningham, and Jack Arute. Great to have you along what has been a very tough sun side of the field. The stadium, now the press box, beginning to take over a part of that to our left, the northern end of the stadium. And it's Purdue who is going with the sun in their face this quarter. Painter intercepted. Malcolm Jenkins, first a blocked kick and now an interception. You see why he is Superman as far as the defense is concerned.
Just a throw that you scratch your head if you're Joe Tiller from your senior quarterback. Painter was running to his right. Coverage, everybody was covered. Great call by Jim Haycock. Coverage is there. They got a couple of guys out there late, but there's just nobody to throw to. And he, instead of throwing it out of bounds, He throws it right to Jenkins. And wonder if you're going to start seeing Joey Elliott warm up on the sidelines for Purdue.
So the Buckeyes with a first down at the Purdue 29-yard line. Maurice Wells in the backfield. He gets the handoff. He'll take it for a couple. Interesting, if we get a chance later on to go back to that replay, Jenkins had collided with one of the receivers going downfield and almost fell, and then gets up, gets himself back in position, and makes the interception, takes it away from a teammate.
And that's what the scouts will be looking at. The NFL scouts coach Jenkins could have gone to the NFL. He was projected as a first-rounder last year, decided to come back and finish out his time here at Ohio State. And they'll look at those types of things. That's what they're looking for in productivity. They'll test 40s and all that, but can you make plays when you fall apart?
Wells hit at the line of scrimmage. He is going to lose a half yard, and Baker on the tackle. Let's go back and look at exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, there's Jenkins right there running into.
See, he almost goes down, puts a hand on the field. Yeah.
Yep.
And it comes back and makes the pickoff. That is stick-to-itiveness, is it not?
Yes. And that's exactly what, again, scouts will go through. They'll time your 40. They'll time your change of direction. They'll try measure your vertical jump. But when they put in the tape, they want to see productivity. Do you make plays when plays are there? And that will be a big plus for them when they see a play like that.
Ohio State's 0 of 3 on third down conversions. Pryor wants to run, and he came close, but I don't think he got the first down. No, they're going to say he's out of bounds at the 21.5-yard line. Joe Holland forced him out.
Jim Tressel looking at how far they have to go, but I believe he's clapping like they're going to go for it. They're bringing in. No, Pretorius now comes on. He gets some boos. Yeah, these fans are, I think they're a little spoiled because I think this is the right call.
And when we look at the holder, we realize it is not Mr. Fake. It is Toma. So he will receive the snap at the 29-yard line, and that is going to be wide to the left and no good. And now here come the Boo Birds in mass. Let's take a timeout. 13:02 left until halftime. Buckeyes 10-0.
10-0 Ohio State, but you're looking at Brock Speck, the defensive coordinator, fellas, and he was very happy with this last drive. Why? Well, he had gotten with his young linebackers and took the chalkboard and tried to get them to account more for Terrell Pryor. Remember, Pryor went on that third and somewhat long to try and get the first down and came up short. When the defense came off, Speck was very happy.
Okay, Jack, the one thing we were talking about during the break is Pryor, once he makes up his mind to run, he's got to go instead of allowing the entire defense to come over him. He's kind of hard to hide at 6'5", 235 pounds. Painter, pass caught, nice throw and catch at the 25, and now out to the 30 is Brandon Whittington. Laurinaitis making the tackle. James Laurinaitis, the senior out of Hamel, Minnesota.
And that's the center, Corey Benton, who is down. They've had some problems in the middle of this offensive line. They weren't even sure who their starters at guard were going to be today because of injuries. And now you're going to lose the guy who snaps the ball. I believe it would be Jared Zwilling, who'd move over to center number 54. But they've had a lot of issues. Painter is taking a lot of the public heat, but he hasn't gotten much help from a banged-up offensive line.
And you know better than anybody because it was your position. But this man going off the field, Benton, is a fifth-year senior. So he not only makes your calls, he understands what he's doing in making the calls. And you bring in somebody new
who's been playing guard.
Yes.
Yeah, and it does change everything you do. A lot of shotgun snap, of course, in the spread offense. So let's see how clean that is, because last week there were some issues with that, even with Benton in against Penn State.
And Jack Arute is telling us from the sideline it is Benton's left wrist that has been injured. Laurinaitis, by the way, with that tackle a moment ago, that gives him 5 already in the first half. Sheet straight ahead. He'll go for a couple, and that's going to be it. Feet taken out from under him by Marcus Freeman. Another young man, we're talking about Laurinaitis. Holman, number 51 on defense for the Buckeyes. As we watched video yesterday, absolutely jumps out at you. And he is a young fella that he's just that. He's only a sophomore. Laurinaitis says he can be the next really great one here for the Buckeyes. Ross Holman, sophomore out of Coldwater, Ohio. Draw play, Sheets gets everything that he can, and then Holman is right there after he is submarined by one of the defensive front, Abdallah.
One of the great runs so far in college football this season was Corey Sheets against Central Michigan. Watch this move right here.
Whoa.
and you realize the score. Of course, there's a minute left. They're down 25-24. But that run and that move put him at the top of the heap as far as career touchdowns in Purdue history. Pretty amazing run.
Well, that pass thrown, quick look in. Whittington faked him right out of his Chippewa.
Is that what they're calling him up there now?
Not sure.
But that run put him ahead of Mike Allstott, which is a great name in Purdue history.
Yep.
And Corey Sheets, now a senior, doesn't have his backfield mate Jason Taylor, so it's all on his shoulders to carry it this year if the Boilermakers want to get back in the mix for a bowl game.
First down from their own 46-yard line. Painter rolls the pocket, now throws incomplete, and he threw it late. Brandon Whittington is there, has made his cut, and is waiting for the football, but then he took a step too far. It's on the inline, our sideline.
And this is where the coaches are saying we're missing it by inches. Ed Zonbrecker, the offensive coordinator, said he is struggling. Painter is struggling with his accuracy. That ball just thrown too far to the outside and late, but they're not much of a miss. And of course, there are the career rushing yards that Sheets is very close to taking over for the great Scott Durkee, number 3.
Ed Zonbrecker, known him for a long time. First associated with him, and he was offensive coordinator for the LSU Tigers down in Baton Rouge. Straight ahead with this handoff, and it'll go for 4 yards. Ralph Bolden gets the carry finally this time. You know, normally, when you look back at your playing days, when you see a quarterback who is high, low, right, left, normally his balance is wrong and his feet are not set right.
And that's the thing they've been working so hard with Painter is what is it? Because they think his mechanics are good. They think it might be that last year they had Justin Keller, they had Dorian Bryant. Those guys raised his level of play. What they want him as a senior is raise this group's level of play. It's your turn to do it. And I honestly think, Ron, I think he's just too in his head. He's thinking too much.
Well, he comes up, he gets, see, he was calling an audible, telling that center, don't snap it now, let me make the call. He gets it, has it complete, and because of a sensational open field tackle, Chikwa is going to deny them a first down play on the 3rd down. Greg Orton on the receiving end.
But I think Purdue should go for it here. You're down 10-0 on the road. That was a good throw. 4th and short with Corey Sheets. You got 4 wideouts.
They're going.
Yeah, I'd maybe run it straight ahead. You got him spread out. 6 guys in the box right now for Ohio State are on the line of scrimmage. I think you run it straight ahead with Sheets.
You see Painter walking along, probably giving cadence count. 4th down, less than a yard. And a quick pass. Ball is knocked down by guess who? Do we have more than 1, 2
yes.
defensively?
Well, no, there's Terrell Pryor.
No, but I'm talking about on the defensive side of the ball. Jenkins has now intercepted. He's blocked a kick, and he had it last conversation. 5 tackles, and now a breakup. Let's take a break. 10-0 Buckeyes.
ESPN's College Football, brought to you by Hummer, like nothing else, and Waste Management. From everyday collection to environmental protection, think green, think Waste Management.
The Jack Nicklaus Museum, a very famous Buckeye, obviously, right here on campus. First down, Buckeyes have the ball at the 45-yard line, and the running play is going to go for about 6 as it is carried by Beanie Wells again. Has not been able to break one huge, but one time this afternoon, but still just those reps, that pounding that he continues to give to the Boilermaker defense is devastating.
I'm not sure that Ohio State wins on the road at USC if Beanie Wells is healthy. But I sure would like to see that game. And the reason I say that is what happened to USC against Oregon State when Jacquizz Rodgers got running. They really tested them. I'd like to see Ohio State be able to do that with their best back, and maybe one of the best players.
Play action and dumps it off from the flat, and that's going to be complete to Jake Ballard, the tight end. And let's go to Matt Wider back in the studio.
All right, Ron, Taco Bell update. Michigan State and a Northwestern team trying to get to 6-0 for the first time since 1962, but they trailed Javon Ringer and the Spartans. This is Ringer's 13th touchdown of the season. He's already up over 1,000 yards on the season. Northwestern has just scored to get it within 10 in Evanston, 17-7.
Okay, Matt, in our ball game, it is 10-0. Beanie Wells stays on the field. He's being joined by Brandon Sane, number 3, an outstanding young running back who last year we saw against the University of Washington. And as the Buckeyes tried to run out the clock at halftime, he took a ball wide and went 50 yards for a touchdown. Amazing speed for a big fella. Sane, number 3. And he injured a knee right after that. Then in preseason camp, pulled a hamstring. We had wondered what had happened to him. Well, now we know he's almost ready to play again.
Yeah, a lot of people thought he'd be the guy when Beanie Wells went down, but that hamstring held him back.
Wells to the left side. He'll have a gain of 1. Jack Arute, let's check with you.
Well, fellas, you know with big-time football, you have big-time communications, right? Remember all the cords that the coaches have to have carried? You see head coach Jim Tressel there with a wireless headset. Guess what? 3 minutes before kickoff, all the wireless headsets to that booth went out. They went to work. They have cobbled together, and they do say it's not 10 cans and string, but they have limited communication up to the coach's booth from the sidelines.
Okay, so they cobbled a repair, and Ohio State is back in working order. That's great. Good hustle, Jack. Pass over the middle is caught, and enough for the first down. That's Brian Robisky. Well, the Ohio State offense, and seeing what they've done so far, they got 10 and they're going for 17 right here. So it might not hurt them if the communication stayed off for the rest of the half.
I think ours are working okay. Well, Jim Tressel, he calls his own plays pretty much. I mean, it comes from downstairs or upstairs, so it wouldn't have hurt Jim Tressel too bad. But I think the bigger difference would have been for Ohio State on defense, because those calls all come down from upstairs.
So communication back on the Ohio State sideline. Beanie Wells, they try to bounce him outside, but that is a great open field tackle. Number 7, Brandon King. Brandon has had an outstanding afternoon so far. We've called his name more than a couple of times. A senior out of Warner Robins, Georgia.
He was a guy who started every game last year at free safety. They've moved him out to corner. A junior eligibility-wise, senior academically, so he's got another year and will play under a new head coach next year, Danny Hope, who is the head coach in waiting here for Joe Tiller. You mentioned top of the broadcast, his last trip to the shoe.
Well, Posey is the man again, wide to the right as you look at Pryor. He's at the bottom of the screen this time. He got the sun to his back were he to be thrown the football. Pryor looking, hurried from the backside, going to be caught and tackled at the 32-yard line by Kerrigan, the big sophomore out of Muncie, Indiana.
And this is the growing pains of a young quarterback. Everybody in the stadium, of course, sees Kerrigan. Well, I'm pretty sure Pryor doesn't have eyes in the back of his head, but what he'll have to start learning is when you run away from and roll out to your right, you know that your backside offensive tackle now has a bad angle, and that Kerrigan is just going to have to keep running the hump to get over there, and you have to count and think 1,000, 1,002 at about 2.5. When you start to run, you either have to tuck it and go or throw it.
About to go under 5 minutes left until halftime. Pryor got him open over the middle, and the ball is dropped, and that is Hartline, the junior out of North Canton, Ohio. Boy, he was trying to take off with the football before he caught it.
And now you're stuck in a weird position. If you catch that, you're in field goal range. Maybe more. I think that there was enough bodies around there. He just turned. Of course, that was the safety McKinley coming up to hit him. But now you're out. This is an awfully long field goal.
Well, guess what? Trapasso was in the ball game holding And would they dare run a fake again?
No,
this is going to be a 50-yard attempt.
I think it's because Petrie, their long kicker, is in, and Trapasso is his holder.
Yeah, you're right. Well, he got plenty of distance, I'll tell you that. And he nails it. Petrie, who normally does the kickoffs, makes it a 49-yard field goal. His longest, 54. 13-0, our new score. So our new score, 13-0 with 4:54 left until halftime. And right now, let's take a look at our Aflac trivia question. And here it comes. First, the Duck. Who holds the Ohio State single game record for all-purpose yards? Who holds the Ohio State single game record for all-purpose yardage?
So returns, rushing, all in together. Eddie George didn't return kicks, so I don't think it could be him.
Tardy and Valentine, the two deep men for the Boilermakers, as Petrie kicks it off. It's a knuckleball. It's going to, well, it goes right through their hands and bounds into the end zone. So it was extremely effective. Didn't look like much. Well, tonight under the lights, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Bank of America 500 at Charlotte on ABC. Coverage begins tonight. NASCAR Countdown, 7 o'clock Eastern Time.
It's interesting. Petrie came in for that long field goal. He's got the range. Trapasso is his holder, and we noticed that. But Petrie, the one thing Coach Tressel said, he's got such a strong leg that he'll kick a good one like he did on the field goal, and then he'll try to kill it on the next one so he gets the ooze out of the crowd. And of course he hits a knuckleball.
And he hits it in, it must have been the middle of the ball.
And that's exactly what Coach Tressel said. When he takes that big swing, he knocks it right in the middle.
Looked like it came from Phil Niekro, back when they were playing. Pass incomplete, thrown a little hard, close range. James Laurinaitis may have gotten a hand on that.
Well, one of the things that Laurinaitis does, I think, better than any linebacker in the country is play the pass game. He is so quick and so natural. He reads routes. He reads quarterbacks' eyes. We saw him at Washington last year have 2 interceptions in that game. He is so good in the passing.
One was a shovel pass, which is virtually impossible. Big opening sheets. Going to take this one out across the 35 to the 40, and finally stopped by Kirk Coleman. 20 yards on the carry by Corey Sheets.
Well, the defensive line for Ohio State both go out, and watch Laurinaitis come up, just parts wide open. But those defensive tackles, nobody had the gaps. Nobody. It was called gap integrity.
Number 50, offense. 5-yard penalty. Still, first down.
Robbie Powell, Jr. out of Roanoke, Virginia. As you get a good look at Joe Tiller. We said his 12th year as the head man for the Boilermakers. And this is the last one. Last season for Joe. Gonna hang him up. So it's first down and 15. Line of scrimmage just shy of the 35-yard line. 13-0. Ohio State about to go into 4 minutes until halftime. And this running play is going to be no gain. In fact, a loss of 1. Well, let's take a look at the Pacific Life game summary.
Well, for Ohio State, it started in special teams. Malcolm Jenkins blocks the Summers punt. Return for a touchdown, and Chris Beanie Wells, how nice it is if you're a Buckeye fan to see him running, although not 100%, still has that stiff-footed run because of the plate he's wearing in his shoe, as Jack showed us, that lineman shoe, so not quite nimble yet.
Just overthrown, and he had Tardy wide open. And Jack Arute, let's check in with you.
Guys, you've been talking about Curtis Painter and the funk that he has been in. You know, one of the things that his offensive coordinator, Ed Zembrecht, has said to all of us, he said, look, I'm trying to get him to loosen up. I'm trying to get him not to think about it. Remember when we asked him, well, what do you do? He said, I tell him bad jokes.
And I'm sure Jack could tell Coach Zembrecht a few of those, because Jack is loaded with bad jokes.
He might join our team. Third down, line to make is midfield. Painter looking and throws this one to Well, that's close to where the guy dotted the I before the ball game with the tuba, but there was no one there wearing a white jersey, I can tell you. Wasikowski, I think, was the closest to it.
And of course, the Purdue Boilermakers, known for their passing offense, they do lead the Big Ten, although not a great number at 254 yards per game, but they are going against the best pass defense in the Big Ten. And
2 deep receivers, and here's the punt. They got it off in a hurry. It's off the side of his foot and is going to take a big Purdue bounce here and go out of bounds at the 24-yard line. So let's take a timeout. 3:11 left until halftime. James Laurinaitis, that's his father, the animal. 13-0, Ohio State. So we are back at the Shoe in Columbus, Ohio, 13-0. As you see a couple of players trying to stretch out muscles on the sideline. 103 degrees was the temperature on the field turf as we started this afternoon's ball game. So some cramps are not out of the question this afternoon. Pryor over the middle. This is Wells, but it's Maurice. And Maurice is going to take it all the way out to the 32-yard line. Time to give the answer of the Aflac trivia question, and it was...
My guess is Keith Pines.
Well, wait a minute. We haven't had the question yet. Who holds the Ohio State single-game record for all-purpose yardage? And it's Keith Byers, 354 yards. And why are you putting the book away?
Well, no, I'm going to show that I admit when I cheat, and so I pulled out the handy media guide.
I mean, but I was going to pick Hopalong Cassidy, and Jack was going for Gene Autry. So anyway.
These are handy little guides, and as I have told you, it's not cheating.
Takes all the fun out of it. 354 yards for a single game is truly outstanding, Keith Byers.
Yeah, and as I've always said, it's not cheating. Life is an open book test. As Einstein said, why not use a calculator if it's there? And no, I'm not trying to compare myself to Einstein, if that's the question.
2nd down and 7. Pryor reverses it. Now going to be tripped up way back at the 36-yard line. And let's check in at the studio with Matt Weiner. Matt?
Hi, Ron, this Sports Center right now, powered by Vizio, and there will be another new #1 team in the country. Texas outscored Oklahoma 25-7 down the stretch to beat the Sooners by 10 in the highest-scoring Red River rivalry game ever. Meanwhile, tonight in Charlotte, 2-time defending champion Jimmy Johnson is on the pole for the 5th stop of the chase for the Sprint Cup. You'll see it live on ABC at 7 Eastern Time.
Okay, Matt. We've got 1:22 left until halftime, so the Buckeyes have got a shot, but it's 3rd down. They got to take it all the way to the Purdue 48-yard line to move the chains. Pryor, and they have gotten him again. Kerrigan, is that Browning? I'll tell you, they just ran by that offensive line like they did not exist.
Believe that may have been Steve Raring in there at right tackle. And that's just not good technique. Raring came back from an injury. He was playing guard. They bumped him out. Not happy.
So we'll take a timeout. 1:06 left. And it's going to be a 4th down and long for Ohio State. We'll be right back. So some of the Buckeye faithful here this afternoon, obviously over 100,000 strong. Look at these, the last 2 sacks. Pressure, that's Kerrigan there.
And the defensive ends for Purdue have been lining up extremely wide because they know they have an athletic mismatch. Raring just had no chance that time. Kerrigan ran right by him.
Now this kick was a line drive, goes out of bounds. No opportunity for a return, but they still got 105. Well, tonight ESPN and ESPN2 deliver 2 college football primetime games. On ESPN 8 o'clock, number 6, Penn State is in Madison to meet Wisconsin. And then on ESPN2 at 8 o'clock Eastern, number 17, Oklahoma State, and number 3, Missouri. College football primetime on ESPN and ESPN2 Saturday.
It'll be interesting to see Purdue, even though they have 2 timeouts, a minute 5, It feels like they should be down more. I wouldn't be surprised if they're willing to eat some of this clock and just try to get out of half and not get another turnover on the minus side of the field.
Painter drills the pass, has it complete, and that is a 10-yard route. Tardy is on the receiving end and tackled by Malcolm Jenkins.
And they stopped the clock for a second to set the ball. Well, actually, Purdue took the timeout because the coaches over there saw that they did not have the first down. So now they've used 2 of their timeouts. They used one to save some clock on the Ohio State drive when they knocked them back.
It's only a 30-second timeout right here. So timeouts left. Ohio State, obviously, they've got 3. They're not going to do any, and they have not changed the scoreboard, but Purdue should have 1, I believe, shouldn't they?
Yeah, 1 timeout. It'll be interesting to see in this drive. A lot of times for a quarterback, when you're in the hurry-up phase, you don't have time to think. You have to just go and talk. If Purdue has some success on this drive and Curtis Painter gets out of his head, I'm not so sure they shouldn't do that in the second half and make that a part of their offense. If he's having trouble because he's thinking too much, do something that he's not allowed to think. That's all instinct at that point.
Showtime is back in, and it is a second down and just inches for Painter and company. Ohio State with pressure. He'll have the first down, but now that clock is going to start back here momentarily, and it'll run down quickly. It's at 52 seconds.
Now you want to save that timeout in case you have to get your field goal unit out.
Well, they got it away quickly, and the ball is underthrown. There was good coverage right there. Orton, the intended receiver. And I believe, Marcus Freeman, the linebacker.
And at 43 seconds, don't think you want to be throwing much in the middle of the field, not first down yardage. If you're going to throw it less than first down, throw it on the sideline so the guy can get out.
Second down and 10. Ohio State 13-0. Now delivers, and on a comeback, boy, he threw the ball out of bounds. So his receiver, didn't matter on the comeback, could not have helped him out. 36 seconds on the clock. By the way, with no opportunities with offense left, unless they score it on defense, and still this stat will stand. This is the 3rd time in 6 games this year in which the Buckeyes have failed to score an offensive touchdown in the first half.
It's not been great offensively for Ohio State, but right now it's all on Jim Tressel's defense. 3rd down. Wouldn't be surprised if they get a stop here if they call the timeout.
Yeah, they got all 3 left. Yep. Ohio University and Southern Cal with the other 2. 3rd and 10. Ball is caught. That's good for the first down. Catch of about 12 yards made by Tardy.
And Garrett Miller, the left tackle for Purdue, down holding his left leg.
Garrett, a 5th-year senior out of Bay City, Texas, 6'8", 275 pounds. And one of the comments that the coaches made to us the other day is finally he's healthy. And now he's down on his back and holding his knee, and they're going to have to help him off the field. He's had a lot of problems with nagging injuries. Very athletic. And in fact, on the slim side for an offensive tackle at 275 pounds and 6'8".
And now you've got a backup left tackle coming in. I believe Zach Reckman has bounced out to that left tackle spot. So you put your best rusher over there and see if he's ready to go.
Painter swings it out. Got it complete. Sheets will step right out of bounds at the 45. That's Gibson who forced him out of bounds. Daddies has had an excellent ball game this afternoon.
And Purdue has had really bad luck with their kicking game, field goals this year. Carson Wiggs, a true freshman, we are told, will get the kick, not Chris Summers. So, and about the 35-yard line is his range. I'm sure they'd want to be a lot closer than that.
Second down. Painter steps up, going to run it. Finally slides down. He's got the first down. He's down to the 35, and we have 16 seconds on the clock.
So now you've got time for almost 3 plays. If you're going to do something here, it has to be quick.
I don't know. It's running right now. They get it away. Pass is knocked away at the last second. That's Kurt Coleman who got over and deflected the ball. It was intended for Keith Smith.
Now you've got time for 1 and a kick. So if you're Purdue, I think you're thinking something to get yourself into field goal range. I don't think you want to throw one to the end zone here. Maybe a wide receiver screen or something. This is a long kick for a true freshman making his first start on the road.
9 seconds showing on the clock. They're at the Ohio State 35. Short drop. Looking. Dumps it over the middle. And, well, Corey Sheets, the intended receiver, but he was already engaged with Laurinaitis, the middle linebacker. And there's 6 seconds on the clock now.
And that looks like Cameron Hayward. Excuse me. That's Lawrence Wilson, who broke his leg last year, grabbing his left leg. And it looked like it may have been a non-contact injury. It just when he went to plant, his leg gave out on him. And you're really close at 6 seconds. If you run a play, you may not have time to get your field goal unit out there. You've got the timeout. Watch the. If you freeze it right there. Yep,
that's where it happened.
Hyperextended when he went to step. It's non-contact. Sometimes you jam that knee and you can bang up the cartilage a little bit.
How many times have you seen that injuries that are non-contact are more serious than those that have contacts?
It's that twisting and turning that does it. Now Purdue's bringing on their field goal unit. This is an awfully long kick for a freshman.
Abdallah came out on the field to help his injured teammate get off because of his size. In this field goal attempt, Wiggs is going to be placed down at the 42-yard line. So 52-yard attempt. 6 seconds on the clock. Ohio State leads it 13-0. And of course that 6 seconds is what we have left until halftime. He got plenty of distance, and he is wide to the left. So we are at halftime, and that field goal attempt goes wide left for the Purdue Boilermakers. And let's go down to the sideline. Jack Arute.
We're with Jim Tressel, coach, special teams, Michael Jenkins. All of it has been good. What about the offense? What do you want to see different in the second half?
Well, Michael Jenkins was in 0-2. Malcolm Jenkins,
I'm sorry.
He's made some plays. Our defense is playing like crazy. So is Purdue. We're struggling on offense. We made the big play with the punt block, but you know how Big Ten games are? They last a full 3 hours.
All right, Coach, thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jack. So our halftime score, the Buckeyes of Ohio State without an offensive point on the board lead it 13-0 over Purdue. So our score at halftime, 13-0 Ohio State. And as we told you, going to break at halftime for the 3rd time in 6 ball games this year, the Ohio State Buckeyes have failed to put an offensive touchdown on the board. It is a very good thing that a gentleman who wears number 2 brought his uniform today and has been outstanding both defensively and on special teams. Mr. Jenkins.
Yeah, I was going to say, Terrell Pryor wears number 2 as well. Now there's 2 number 2s for Ohio State. And as we take a look at the best by playbook, the touchdown that did come courtesy of the block punt. Watch Jenkins lined up on the outside. Looks like he's going to be blocking the speed man outside. He starts sneaking in. And as he starts sneaking in, the wingman for Purdue sees him at the very last second. And he is supposed to bounce out and block him. But because he didn't identify Jenkins as a rusher, never saw him. And of course, Sabino then picks it up and goes in for the touchdown. And for Purdue, Corey Sheets needs to be the man here in the second half. 42 rush yards in the first half. Your quarterback is struggling, has 2 turnovers, 1 fumble, 1 interceptions. I think Purdue needs to go back, as Jack said, to old school Big Ten football and Joe Tiller's last visit to the shoe.
Here's Petrie's kickoff, high end over end is going to come down at the 1-yard line. Return by Valentine. Oh boy. Does not even make it to the 15-yard line. That is nice coverage by the Buckeyes. And let's take a look now at the Pacific Life game summary.
And it's all in the stats. And for Purdue, it's about 2 turnovers by their quarterback. The numbers are fairly even for Ohio State. They got stuck in wet cement every time they got down in the red zone, near the red zone. But a fairly evenly played game. But I really think that Purdue needs to turn around and hand it off to 24 a few times. And then that'll start opening up the play action possibly for Painter.
Curtis Painter, 5th-year senior out of Vincennes, Indiana. That's who he gives it to. Curtis Sheets bounces to the outside, has 10. Counted off at about 15 yards, and that's the first play from scrimmage. Coleman ran him out, but a nice piece of movement as he picked up 10, slid to the outside, and averaged, put another 4 yards on it.
And this is something the Ohio State defense has really been struggling up front. Is they're having a hard time getting off blocks. We saw that against Wisconsin. Jim Haycock, very honest with us, the defensive coordinator, saying our defensive line is young and still trying to figure out how to get off blocks. That time they were all smothered.
So a first down and the ball out at the 29-yard line. Sheets again right at the middle. Has 5, has 10. Counted off at 11 yards. So 25 yards in 2 carries for Sheets. Jack Arute.
And Rob, that's exactly what head coach Joe Tiller wanted. He told his players at the half, he said, look, we've got to be patient. He said, I like the way my defense has made adjustments, the way they're playing. He told his offense, he said, look, we can't get it all back. Be patient. I asked him, what about Curtis Painter? He said, Jack, we're just going to be patient.
Okay. Well, 25 yards in the first 2 carries. This time the Buckeyes are waiting for him. Freeman leading the defensive charge. So still he's got 3 carries for 25. It's pretty good average.
And I think that Curtis Painter has earned the right for his coaches to be patient. He's now over 10,000 yards for his career. Only the 4th quarterback in the history of this great conference to do that. And he did struggle in that first half. They benched him at the end of the game last week against Penn State. They did it last year against Michigan. He bounced back and played well. So let's see if he can't pick it up a notch here in the second half.
Well, they got the double stack wide receivers, one to the left, one to the right. And it's going to be a quarterback draw, and Painter will get about 5 yards. Gibson defensively.
One thing that you have to be able to do in a spread shotgun offense is shotgun snaps, and that has been trouble for Purdue. Right now you have Corey Benton back in. Jack Arute was saying that he hurt his elbow, but he was okay, and it was his non-snapping elbow, but it has not been an automatic in shotgun snaps, and that one was low when you're running a quarterback run.
Third down, they need to take it to midfield. Nice job of picking up the blitz and a good screen there. Orton. I said screen, but actually it was a good pick. He came wide open very quickly.
Well, and they easily could have called this. There was a crossing route, and the tight end, I believe it was Wazakowski, right there, throws a shoulder into the cover man. Went out of his way to do that, and the umpire did not see it.
So it's a first down. And again, they are in Buckeye territory. Sheets hit at the line of scrimmage, will have nothing. It'll be second down and 10. Charge led by Doug Worthington. Doug is a junior from Maple Springs, New York. Another one of those pups, only a junior. They say, you know, he gets better every ball game. And they have played already 9 defensive linemen in the first half.
Jim Haycock, whose background is as a defensive line coach, working very hard with this group. He admits they're not quite there, not where they need to be. Of course, losing Vernon Golston and his 14 sacks from last year is a big loss.
Second down and 10. Painter, far sideline, got single coverage, and the ball is just a bit underthrown to Orton. let's go back and talk about that defense of Ohio State one more time, and one other point to make. When you have defensive linemen that are not effective as far as penetration and also holding their gap load, then the offensive linemen get right out on the linebackers, and it has to have been tough on Horton, on Holman, on Laurinaitis, and also on Freeman.
Those are the guys, especially Laurinaitis, an athletic guy. You want him to be free, and they haven't had that so far. Of course, now mostly defensive backs in the game. Just Freeman and Laurinaitis with 5 defensive backs for Ohio State.
This is the 8th play of the drive. It all started back at the 14-yard line. 3rd down. Still looking, and throws almost an interception. Rob Rose finally just pressured him off the field.
And even though you're at 4th and 10, I think that they're going to bring their kicking unit out. And boy, they must really think this freshman's got a great leg in Wiggs. I thought maybe this is a place you could go for it, but they said his range was 55 yards, and this is going to be just short of that.
Yep, you're right. They're going to place it down. Painter is the holder. And we'll check it officially, but it looks to me like it's going to be a 53-yard attempt just inside the far hash mark. Well, he does. He's got a lot of leg in. Plenty of distance and plenty of accuracy on this one.
So it was a kickoff this week. Wiggs beat out Summers.
That's a new school record. The old one was 51 yards. 13-3 our new score.
Turn it up a notch. Let's turn it up a notch. Pressure's on. Let's turn it up a notch. Yeah. It's a thin line between winning and losing. No second place trophies, either you winning or losing. Proof is in the pudding, which side is you choosing? Leave it on the field, no time for confusion. No rest for the weary.
So we are back, and you're looking at Carson Wiggs right there. I tell you, Ed, you were talking about, look at that, a 53-yarder. That's a school record, and that's a freshman doing it on the road at a tough place to play and to win. So he's got something for his scrapbook forever right there. This is Thomas from around the 3. Jack Arute, what do you got for us?
Well, Ron, remember you guys, and we noticed that there were some defensive changes that Brock Spack made about in the middle of the first quarter. Well, I caught up with him at halftime, and he said, yeah, he's changed his alignment, he's changed some of the assignments for the linebacking core, and asked him where he got it, and he said, well, we have somewhat the same personnel groupings that USC does, and when I saw and reviewed the USC tapes, it led me to at least have that in my bag of tricks. But then he added very quickly, guys, we may not have the same caliber of guys as USC.
Hey, Jack, but you know what? He makes a great point. How many people do? USC is really a talented bunch. Beatty Wells, and he tries to take it to the right side. That's going to be a gain of none. Haygood making the tackle for Purdue.
And Brock Spack, one of the coaches, has been around forever with Joe Tiller, been around Purdue forever, played here. And he was given an extended contract by the athletic director. Of course, Danny Hope, the head coach in waiting, will have control over his staff. And that was one of the things that Joe Tiller said I had to give him. But Brock Spack and Danny Hope worked together for many years. They get along very well. And Brock Spack will be back as a defensive coordinator next year at Purdue.
Good look at Hope on the sideline. He too dons a mustache.
I think you have to. I think that's a rule at Purdue.
Is it?
Yeah.
Not the cold weather, huh?
No, it's a mustache club for the coaches.
4 yards gained on the play. There's Joe. There's a mustache.
And then Danny Hope. See, when you want to be the head coach in waiting, you've got to get a mustache like the head coach. See, Brock's got I don't know if he's using any coloring, but I think that's the key for the head coach in waiting is the same color mustache.
Lamar Thomas in the ball game, one of the 4 wide receivers. 3rd down, line to make is the 29. Flags are down. It's a free play, and the ball is not thrown well. Beanie Wells, the intended receiver, but they'll get 5 yards off this one, I believe.
Yeah. McGee was offsides, but this is something that a young quarterback.
Offside, number 71, offense.
It's just going to be a long process for Terrell Pryor, but he needs to know I've got a freebie. I can take a shot down the field.
Exactly. Whatever you do, don't pull up on a play like that.
Yeah. Take a look at the running backs in today's game. Very similar across the board. Beanie Wells had that one little breakout run. His top end speed is just not there, and on a 3rd and short, not going to need it. I would think Pryor under center, one back, you're going to see, well, now to an eye.
And that's only 5 penalties in the ball game. We've been relatively flag free. 3rd down, just over a yard. Beanie Wells has it, still driving. Going to be a gain of 5 by the time he stops after giving a 2nd and a 3rd effort. And Carlino on the tackle, number 47.
Well, this is a play Ohio State has run forever. Watch the down block, so you seal it here. Person comes around, and with the fullback, this is what they call their power play. Remember the national championship year, they ran that play about 4 or 5 times a series. Not as much in the offense now with a shotgun, but good job by Person on the pull.
Wells spins off the tacklers. He's free. 40, 45. Oh my, and you hear the applause and the appreciation. That's 2 plays in a row and different kinds of 2nd and 3rd efforts. But this way, a dead leg, then he broke the tackle, and then he just took it up for 9 more.
And it's that stiff arm Jack Arute was talking about. I mean, he absolutely threw Haygood to the ground. Haygood, the best linebacker for Purdue, got a face full of Beanie Wells' hand, and he just threw him right to the ground. He is such a powerful man in his upper and lower body. You have to
understand also, he's only 20 years old. He came here as a 17-year-old freshman. Beanie Wells going on top. Got a man. Overthrown was Robisky.
I like the call by Jim Tressel and Jim Bowman, though. You got a post route. You're going to have to let this young man learn on the fly. It's not going to be perfect. Beanie Wells, you mentioned 20 years old, and Pryor's 18, and Beanie Wells has really taken Pryor under his wing. Spoke to him at length last week during that Camp Randall game that was so loud, and he's really started to look out for this young man because Wells came in as such a highly recruited guy. He knows what kind of pressure this young man's under.
Pryor going to run it, and he'll step out of bounds at around the 45-yard line. Jack Arute.
Guys, you talk about the emergence of Terrell Pryor, and it may have been a turning point last week when it was that 12-play, 80-yard drive, come from behind in on the road, and it was Beanie Wells that challenged this guy right there. Beanie Wells went to Terrell Pryor and said, look, at the huddle when they were down, you got a choice. Do you want to be and play like a kid or play like a man? Well, that was a man going into the end zone. Beanie Wells is the one that motivated his freshman QB.
Well, and it's paying off, Jack. Quarterback sneak right here. They'll have the 1st down. And, while all this is happening, you look up at the clock and half of the quarter has disappeared. We're down to 8:13 right now. And if they stick it in the end zone, then the hill gets a little bit higher to climb.
And Beanie Wells asking that question of Terrell Pryor, do you want to be a kid or do you want to be a man? You don't ask that unless you know the answer at that moment in the game. And I think Chris Wells is doing a heck of a service for Ohio State and his teammates, pushing and prodding this young man along.
8th play of the drive. It all started back at the 19-yard line. 1st down, 44. Wells tries to bounce it outside. He got his feet tangled with his tight end, Brandon Smith. Brandon, a senior out of Euclid, plays tight end, also plays fullback. He was out there blocking for him, and watch, they'll get their feet tangled.
And Purdue up front has done a nice job. They struggled last week a bit against Evan Royster and that powerful spread HD offense at Penn State, but so far, down in and down out, they've been okay. They've sprung a couple, and Beanie Wells, of course, throwing his stiff arm in people's face hasn't been helpful, but they haven't been too bad, haven't been pushed around much.
It's Ballard, the tight end, in motion. Wells gets it, but I'll tell you, they are all over him. Matt Weiner, let's check with you back in the studio.
Thank you, Ron. Let's get a Verizon Wireless update from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Jimmy Clausen hadn't thrown a pick while throwing 7 interceptions the last 3 games, but Quan Sturdivant steps in front there for the nation's leading 13th interception of the season for North Carolina, 17-16 there. Vanderbilt has fallen, and Starkville, Mississippi, 17-14 Bulldogs.
Okay, Matt, so still plenty of time in that Carolina-Notre Dame game. Beanie Wells on the sideline. He was shaken up in that last play. In fact, the coaching staff wanted a late hit. He was on the ground, but the second man came in to hit him as the ball is thrown complete, and that's Posey. Take a look at that play, and you'll see if there was any justification in their anger.
Remember, it's the right foot that's injured, that has that tendon, and that's the foot that gets rolled on, and it looked to me like that toe. That does look like a late hit, but I think the injury happened when Beanie Wells' right foot got stuck underneath Kerrigan, the defensive lineman, and I wouldn't be surprised if he strained that exact same tendon in his foot.
See where his left hand was? That's a horse collar. Wobbly, short punt. Got a hit at the 10. Ohio State has it covered up, and they'll touch it dead at the 4-yard line. So Beanie Wells, is he headed for another stint on the bench because of injury?
ESPN's College Football, brought to you by the Principal Financial Group. We'll give you an edge. And ESPN Game Plan. See the most college football every Saturday. To order, call your pay-per-view provider.
13-3, Ohio State leads it. 5:50 remaining third quarter. Jackaroo, an injury report for us.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Beanie Wells, the athletic trainers, did not work on his foot or his leg. What they did is they got up by the shin area, like the middle of his calf. That's where they've added some tape and some support. So we'll just have to wait and see. It looked a little different on this replay, didn't it, guys?
Yeah, it sure did, since it got rolled up underneath. Worst starting position of the afternoon for Purdue. Running play, nothing. During the timeout and the change of possession, Laurinaitis, along with other defensive players, turning to the crowd and saying, hey, let's make some noise and make them feel as though they are intimidated with their backs to the student section.
It's worth pointing out on that Beanie Wells injury that did appear to be a horse collar. There was, of course, a late hit by Holland that wasn't called, but it also appeared that Kerrigan did the horse collar, which is outlawed, and that's one of the reasons they did it, is because players tend to roll up on ankles when you grab from behind like that.
Yep, the wrong direction. You're right. Second down and 10. Well, a little bit of room to breathe out around the 6. Ross Holman along with Rob Rose making the tackle.
And this is a place Joe Tiller, his offensive coordinator Ed Zonbrecker, wouldn't be surprised if they try to get Orton free. Maybe a little play fake to Sheets. You got Orton down here to right in that double stack formation. Just get a sense they may try to get some momentum here with a long throw.
We will see. Third down. They need to take it to the 14 if they want to keep this drive going. 14 or beyond. Thrown too tall. Sheets tried to lob it up. Delinger with some good pressure. Todd, a junior out of Troy, has really been fighting injuries defensively. And also coming over was Malcolm Jenkins as far as the cover on Sheets.
Well, Painter was looking to Orton, but it has been an outstanding day for Malcolm Jenkins. He read that the whole way. Orton went to run that go route, and Jenkins was with him the whole way, and Painter had to come off late.
Summers with the kick. Not a good one. End over end. It is going to bounce, and now being taken on the bounce at the 38 is Small. And Ray Small is hit and stopped immediately by Wasikowski. So 32 yards is all the punt was. Nothing on the return.
It was interesting talking to Malcolm Jenkins and James Laurinaitis about last week. And James Laurinaitis was talking about, it was last week in Camp Randall a defining win. We had one in 06 against Texas. We had one in 07 up at Washington when we were behind. Was Wisconsin that? And he and Malcolm Jenkins agreed that it could be that win last week, and the march to win it may have been the turning point for this season.
First and 10. Great starting position. Pryor turns from the right, nothing there, gets it back over to Hartline. And let's take a look at a package that we have on Malcolm Jenkins.
Excellent job sneaking in to block the punt, then the interception on a poor throw by Painter, and then the knockdown on 4th down where he read the slant perfectly. He saw the formation. Ron, you talked about all the studying he does.
His high school coach said he was that way. He's just really a cerebral guy when it comes to the sport of football and loves to study it and feels as though he has to know it that well. I ask you the question, between him and Laurinaitis, are there two more instinctive defensive players in the country?
I don't think so.
Wells bumps into his own blocker, then gets it outside, and he is finally going to be stopped at the 25-yard line. Any question on lack of mobility by Wells, I think, might have been curbed right there.
It's really interesting to watch this, and he is taped up, as Jack said, on that shin.
Brandon Smith, great block.
You watch that right leg, and he just can't quite push off it, but he's so much quicker than you would think for a guy who weighs almost 240 pounds, has a bum right big toe, has to wear a lineman cleat on the right foot, as Jack showed us earlier. He still can accelerate.
Pryor on the keeper. And he is being pushed back. Crowd doesn't like it, and this is where he will learn, but the best read was to have given it inside. Good heavens.
Well, and he's just starting to learn that you can't try to make the big play every time. He fakes the handoff, and all he has to do is just cut it up. Well, yeah, that's a walk-in. But even later when watch this, just cut it up. You're going to get 4-5. Don't try to bounce it. He's just got to learn that this is no longer Pennsylvania high school football. This is the Big Ten. He's got a long way to go. He's a very talented guy. Took over for Todd Beckman in the Troy game, but he just got to learn sometimes. Duck the shoulder and go.
13-3 our score. About to go under 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Wells spins off a tackle, still fighting. He'll wind up with a gain of 1. And a reminder, Thursday, see an all-new Life on Mars at 10 o'clock, 9 Central, after an all-new Grey's Anatomy. And, of course, that's on ABC.
And here Ohio State finds themselves again moving the ball in the middle of the field, but then when they get down inside the 30, getting stuck. And now they find themselves in a 3rd and 9 situation. And with Terrell Pryor, not Todd Beckman, in, this is not exactly where you want to be.
Yep, the line to make. They got to take it down to the 15-yard line. Pryor, quick out in the flat. Got it complete. Huge block. 15 down to the 10. Lamar Thomas, that's a freshman. He's got greatness written on his forehead as well.
What an excellent block by Hartline. Watch Hartline. He's going to come right out and get a block on the corner who's covering Thomas. This is just a wonderful job by Hartline. Got just enough, and give the freshman Thomas credit for seeing Hartline and getting to the inside of that. Thomas playing a lot because Dane Zanzenbacher's out with a concussion.
So it is 1st and goal. The line of scrimmage, the 8 of Purdue. Pitch back comes to Wells, and of course this is Maurice Wells. You can tell by the long mane coming out from under the back of his headgear. Ryan Baker on the tackle.
Well, with Maurice Wells in there, it makes you wonder if Beanie Wells maybe didn't come to the sideline and need a break because of that rolling up on his leg. I mean, you want who I consider, when healthy, the best running back in the country on the field in this situation. It makes me wonder if he's not a little more banged up than he looked on that run when he came back.
So it's 2nd down and goal from that exact spot. Pryor slipping, sliding, and again, the crowd now, the chorus of boos or so. And, you know, I think what they're trying to say is what all of us are trying to say. You got to commit. Once you realize you got to run, go ahead and, you know, take what you can and get out of Dodge.
Or pitch it. He had Wells there for the option.
So that's the end of the third quarter. 13-3. Buckeyes still without an offensive touchdown. So we are back for the final 15 minutes of play. And Ed Cunningham looked at me with a look of surprise as I said, we're now through 3 quarters and the Buckeyes still don't have an offensive touchdown. It's hard to believe.
They don't have a red zone offense yet that they're comfortable with. This offense was built with Todd Beckman in mind. Makes you start to think down the road.
Hey.
You suggested it. Maybe Beckman needs to play in the red zone.
3rd down. Pumps to his right. Now looking. Pressure from behind. Pryor will run. At the 10. At the 5. And he goes down there. It'll be 4th down and goal.
And a Purdue player down on the 10-yard line. I believe that's Torrey Williams. What a shame that is. This young man, a senior, did not play in 2005 with a broken leg. Hurt his knee in the first game of 2006. Missed the rest of the year and ruptured his Achilles in Game 7 last year. Finally healthy. It'd be an awful shame if he's hurt to the point where he won't be able to finish this season. He's worked so hard to get back. It's a nice open field tackle by Royce Adams.
Well, he's got 5 tackles today, and as you could see, unless he knocked the wind out of himself, hard to see that he twisted anything.
And the guy bends over and puts those hands on the knees. Makes you think that maybe he did land on his sternum and knock the wind out of himself. But we've seen that so much. You mentioned Jordan Shipley, how nice it is for Texas to have. I mean, he was the difference in today's game.
Has been all
Texas
season.
And,
I think he's got, what, 9 touchdowns or 10 with the 96-yard kick return. And no, I can't remember. Did they give him the touchdown that was close to the north end zone?
I believe they did, yeah.
Okay, because if that's the case, I think he's got 10. John Thomas to hold, and this is going to be a 22-yard attempt. Good pass, and the kick is good. So Pretorius makes it a 16-3 ball game. We got 14.5 minutes left. Be right back.
Another stalled drive in the red zone for the Buckeyes yielded 3 points, but it didn't do much for Pryor's confidence. You can see him on the sidelines when he came off. He was visibly upset at himself, guys. He's such a perfectionist. He knows he's got a long way to go as the signal caller for the Bucks.
You know, Jack, the amazing thing for a kid that is as talented and understands this game as well as he does, he knows better than anybody. Going backwards gets you nowhere, and that's what he did on 2 separate plays that just nailed him as far as not getting anything but a field goal out of that drive. And it's not the first time today either. This kick is going to be returned from the 6 by Valentine. And Valentine takes a hard hit at the 20.
And this is where Terrell Pryor, he spends so much time studying the game. Beanie Wells tells stories about where he'll text him, "What are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I'm at the office watching film," which is unusual for a guy as much talent. But what he's got to start to learn is take what's there. He's trying to make the big play. And you see that a lot with a young man who has that much talent. They always want it to be the home run. And Pryor's just going to have to figure out, okay, pitch it on the option, or if it's not there, tuck it and go. I can't try to bounce everything. And he's also got to start letting it go in the passing game. He holds on to it just a little too long right now.
Sheets, nice penetration right there, and the tackle is made by Duniger. Well, the Big Ten today, how have they fared as a league?
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this game that are slightly interested in that final. But I think the moral is today hasn't been very good to the home squad, except for here at Ohio State so far.
Yeah, Minnesota winning over Illinois. Shocked at that one.
And I'm excited to see Penn State, Wisconsin tonight. I think Penn State is a legit top 5, top 6 team. And that'll be a good one to see if Wisconsin can bounce back from 2 very difficult losses in a row.
Well, that pass just thrown into the ground. Jermail Hines, one of the young men we talked about, number 7. He's a sophomore out of Glenville High School up in Cleveland. So many kids from there come to Ohio State. He's being used a lot today because of the spread formation and playing nickelback. Third down and 10 yards to pick up the first for Purdue. Got it complete. They'll have the first down as Tardy still on his feet. And they say nope, he stepped out of bounds at the 33-yard line. Ron Franklin, Ed Cunningham, and Jack Arute coming to you from still another sellout here at the Horseshoe in Columbus, Ohio. And it's 16-3. Ohio State in command. They still do not have an offensive touchdown, though. Everything has come off field goals and special teams. Take it to Sheets, rolls the pocket, now gets it to a wide open tight end. That's Lindsey, and Lindsey lumbers his way up to around the 43-yard line. ESPNU, AP All-State top 20.
Well, how many times have we done this over the last 2 seasons?
Last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and going back to 2007. Now Missouri, of course, with Alabama idle. Missouri with a tough one at Oklahoma State. If they can get a big win there, they may leap over Alabama, who's sitting at home watching TV today.
Well, a huge viewership, keeping an eye on LSU and Florida tonight down in the swamp, and a large amount of impetus there as far as moving toward number 1. The Longhorns don't really have to worry about that stuff. They're going to be somewhere inside of number 5.
And how hard does it get for them? They get to go home and play Missouri.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the Big 12 is awfully stacked.
And then a week after that, Oklahoma State, who plays Missouri tonight. We're going to find out a lot before this day is over, and next week as well. Third down and a yard to pick up the first. By one leg, he didn't get it. I'll tell you, that is Hayward, Cameron Hayward, who was shaken up back in the first half, who reached up and grabbed the leg of the running back Sheets, and I don't believe he got it.
Yeah, but I think Joe Tiller's going to go here, and I don't blame him one bit. Fourth and very short. You haven't been able to get. You've got 3 points to show for 3+ quarters of play. I don't blame him. And Ohio State, down around the 30, gets stuck in mud. So why not go for it here? I like this call by Tiller. But I don't think you mess around. You got a one-back set. Painter's jumping around, but I think the quarterback sneak it straight ahead.
And a timeout called by Purdue before the ball was snapped. We'll take it with them. 10:58 left in our ball game. Big fourth down play for the Boyders. They trail by 13. Welcome back to Columbus, Ohio. 16-3. Ohio State in a huge offensive play for Purdue. Fourth down, less than a yard.
And do not be surprised if you see a fake handoff and a boot with the receiver up top.
Well, straight ahead, and Sheets hurdles. He will have the first down from where the line judge is coming in from the far side and the linesman from the near side. Laurinaitis on the tackle.
That was a nice job by the offensive line. They got the guys down on the ground, and Laurinaitis reading this perfectly. Watch as he reads and tries to come up and do this, but the offensive line did a good job of getting the red shirts on the ground, and it made Laurinaitis have to jump from too far because his defensive lineman's feet were in the way. That was a good job in the middle of that offensive line.
Well, Monday at 9:30, 8:30 Central, ABC's Bad Girl of Television is finally back. Christina Applegate stars in the season premiere of the Emmy-winning comedy Samantha Who. Monday at 9:30, 8:30 Central on ABC.
We've been talking an awful lot about the struggles of the defensive line for Ohio State, but one place they are not struggling is in their secondary. There have been so many times where Curtis Painter There's nobody open. We've talked about Jenkins a ton, but O'Neal, you've mentioned Hines several times. All of these guys are covering so well today.
2nd down and 10. Here comes pressure. And just puts up a lob. Fade route near sideline, and it's overthrown for Orton. Malcolm Jenkins with the cover. You see that conversation going on. And for good reason. They are both outstanding football players. I have a feeling that Orton is just extremely frustrated over the way this season has gone, because with his talent and him just not able to get the ball to him on a consistent basis.
Well, and that's been the game plan, as we've been saying all day. Jim Haycock, he knew who the best player was for Purdue, so let me put my best player over there. And Malcolm Jenkins has not let his defensive coordinator down.
3rd down, and they need the 46 of Ohio State. Painter going to be sacked at the 30-yard line. Abdallah, the senior out of Metairie, Louisiana. Tell you what, though, those offensive linemen don't need to hang their head, because he had time and just literally wound up running into Abdallah.
And on the top side where Abdallah was lined up, they ran a defensive line stunt. And it was actually the defensive end, Cameron Hayward, who came inside and flushed Painter back out to the defensive tackler who had replaced him on the stunt.
Ray Small receiving the punt, and they will scrimmage from the 32. 16-3, Ohio State. We'll be right back.
ESPN's College Football is presented by Cars.com, where confidence comes standard. And in part by Monday Night Football, all season long on ESPN and ESPN HD at 8:30 p.m. Eastern.
And the Buckeyes on parade. People getting their picture taken all day long before the game, and they'll be there until it gets dark tonight, doing the same thing. Very popular area here on campus. Beanie Wells. Now let's take a look at that last defensive stand as Anthony Haygood makes the tackle for Purdue.
Well, and that's Jim Haycock, the defensive coordinator, comes over and gives a chest bump to Nader Abdallah. And you have to think that Jim Haycock, when we met with him yesterday, he's just waiting for this defensive line to come along, because it's his group, and with this secondary and those linebackers, if they come along, I think you're talking about one of the top 2 or 3 defenses in the entire country. But he knows they still need to come along.
What he's hoping right now, when he looked up at the clock, as the pitch goes to Wells, and Wells will fall down at around the 37, is that this offense can drive about 8 minutes of the 9 left on the clock, and then the defense won't really have to play a bunch more.
No. But with the hesitation of Pryor, even that time, he telestrates that he's going to pitch, and then he held it, and then he pitched it. Jack was talking about how competitive he is and how conscientious he is. He's just thinking too much. He's got to get into a rhythm where as soon as you feel it, pitch it. As soon as you feel it, throw it. And the coaches talk about how he wants to be 100% sure. As a quarterback, you don't have that much time. That 75% sure is good enough, and then experience has to take over, which he doesn't have right now.
3rd down. Looking, still looking. Pressure will force him out, and he will be close to the first down, but not going to have it. Haygood is the man who chased him down.
And Brock Spack, who went back to being the linebackers coach, they lost their best player in the preseason in Jason Warner, the weak outside linebacker. And he's got a bunch of young guys except for Haygood, who's a converted fullback. And Brock Spack said, you know, my first year back as a linebackers coach, I really wish I had a bunch of seniors who'd been starting, but that's not what we have.
Well, I mentioned the fact that Jim Haycock wanted the offense to run about 8 minutes off the clock. Well, they're about 7.5 short. Punt caught, and stepping out of bounds at the 17 is Tardy. Let's take a break. 7:32 left in our ball game. 16-3 Ohio State.
Purdue, we got 8 minutes to go.
Now, welcome back to Columbus. A couple of Jack's tickets there. As we come down the home stretch, 7 minutes and 32 seconds.
Hey, those are my uncles.
I'll tell you what, that gentleman looks a whole lot like Woody Hayes, does he not? That's amazing. First down and 10. They scrimmage from the 17-yard line. Purdue, both teams without an offensive touchdown. Quick pass in the flat. Tardy will have a gain of about 7 yards.
And now I think Purdue, down 13, needs to hurry up. The clock is going to work against them. And old Coach Hayes would know.
There's that gentleman I was talking about.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Coach Hayes would know that his defense, they're going to have to start rolling some guys in if you're Ohio State, because Purdue is now back to the line of scrimmage. I think, wow, they're confused now about who should be on the field. But they are going to try to get in a hurry up, down 2 touchdowns and 7 minutes left.
Pass right over the middle, threw it hard, but Orton made the catch, and he will have about 12 yards after the catch. Matt Weiner, let's check with you back in the studio.
All right, Ron, our nominee for the AT&T ESPN All-America Player of the Week is Texas receiver Jordan Shipley. A touchdown catch among his 11 receptions and a kick return for a touchdown among his 225 total yards in Texas win. Text VOTE to 51234 on your AT&T wireless phone to cast your vote.
Okay, Matt, thanks very much. 6 minutes and 20 seconds left in our game. Ball is batted in the air and knocked free Rob Rose. You could hear that as he got a big paw on it and just bang.
Well, Rose working one-on-one on Zach Jones, comes inside, does such a nice job slapping the hands coming inside right in the face.
Positioning was perfect with the hands up, wasn't it?
Yeah, if he rushes to the outside, he's not in that lane, but worked back to the inside. Rose, a guy they weren't sure was going to be able to play, has been battling some lower leg injuries.
Sheets spins and then will be double teamed. Laurinaitis, the man on top, and Gibson is the man who blew the play up.
I know they want to keep Sheets involved, but at this point in the game, with the clock starting to melt down 2 touchdowns, I know that Painter has not played well this season. He was benched last week against Penn State, but I think you just have to hand it to your senior and say, it's your game. If you can get us down there to score, let's make it closer and see if we can't win this thing. I think it's got to be on their quarterback, not their running back right now.
Almost intercepted. Stepping in front was Chimde Chikwa. Well, Chimde had 6 points if he grabs that one.
Well, and Chikwa, a guy who started the season as a starter because Donald Washington was suspended for the first 2 games for a rules violation, and Washington has not been able to get his job back because Chikwa's been playing so well.
Tell you what, that's kind of what Malcolm Jenkins said about his career. They had him on offense at first in high school, and he said, I couldn't catch the football, so they put me on defense. That may be the reason that
Chikwa's on defense, yes.
On defense as well. Fair catch called for. Ball is muffed, but he came right back up with it. That's Ray Small. And it is down at the 23. So a 40-yard punt. When we come back, 5:14 remaining. Buckeyes 16-3. So we're back in Columbus, Ohio. Hang on, Sloopy has been playing during the break. 16-3. Buckeyes on top. Locals are happy always to get a win, but they keep looking at the totals up on the board, and the totals are lacking offensively.
217 total yards with 5:14 left, and the schedule they have coming up, they know what's coming. This crowd is smart. They know what's on the docket in the next few weeks.
Well, now they're just going to try to run the clock. Time to take a look at the Pacific Life game summary.
Well, you know you're not in the Big 12 when the only touchdown of the game is on a blocked punt. Every other point in this game coming from field goals, and Malcolm Jenkins has played wonderfully. Beanie Wells with 91 yards, but he did sit out for a little while after rolling on that right foot. Remember that horse collar tackle where they landed on his leg? He's been in and out of the lineup since then.
Going to go long. Got a man out there. Collision. Flag is down. Pass interference on King. Robisky, the intended receiver for the Buckeyes.
And here's a good lesson for a young quarterback. It's okay to underthrow.
Number 7, defense. 15 yards. Previous back. Automatic first down.
If you overthrow your receiver, he can never make the catch, and you can't get pass interference. If you underthrow it, he can come back and make a play like Robisky was trying to do. And if the cornerback doesn't stop and play the ball and runs into him, it's pass interference. So it's a good lesson for a young quarterback. If you're not going to throw it right on the money on the long ball, you better be short, not long.
Beanie Wells, nothing right up the middle. He'll take it at right guard and go to the 41. Now let's head to New York and Matt Weiner for a Sports Center right now.
Thank you, Ron. Sports Center right now powered by Vizio. There will be a new #1 team in the land tomorrow because Texas outscored Oklahoma 25-7 down the stretch and won the Red River rivalry in the highest scoring edition of that series. And next on ABC, the 5th race in NASCAR's chase for the Sprint Cup, live from Charlotte, coming up at the top of the hour right here.
Thanks, Matt. Our situation, 3 minutes, 55 seconds left. 16-3. The Buckeyes with a second down, and it's Wells again lost his footing, and he had some significant yardage possibly beyond that point, so it's third down, and it'll be about 6.5, 7 yards for the first.
And if you're Purdue, I think with 2 timeouts, you may want to try to save some of this clock and get a timeout. Cannot redeem those for cash value at the end of the game.
Oh, Jackie's been holding that one all game.
Ed, don't quit your day job, okay?
Hey, I just wanted a bad joke to lighten up things for Curtis Painter, as Ed Zunbracker, his offensive coordinator, has been trying to do.
Third down, 2 stacked receivers on each side. Pryor, turn it up. Still running laterally, and he winds up with about 1 yard.
Well, the coaches from Ohio State and the schedule that they have coming up at Michigan State, Penn State, at Northwestern, they're going to have to get this young man out of his head and start playing with just his instincts. And I know that Terrell Pryor wants to be a great quarterback. He's working very hard at it, but I just think that since he's replaced Todd Beckman, he's starting to maybe think a little too much. I think early against Troy in those early games when he was spotting for Beckman, he could just go in and play. And now I think the pressure of being the starting quarterback maybe getting in his head a little bit.
Wobbly spiral. Fair catch is called for and made at the 23. And here's what they have. Speaking of Ohio State, the rest of the way.
And the Big Ten so much better than it was last year. I hope the rest of the country realizes how good Javon Ringer is at Michigan State. Evan Royster, sophomore, no one expected the things that he's done, well over 100 yards per game. Finally, Northwestern with a very healthy Terrell Sutton off to a great start. Juice Williams playing wonderfully, although they lost today to Minnesota. And, of course, Rich Rodriguez, things not going well, which is an understatement for the Wolverines. But Terrell Pryor, with his head down, needs to get it up quickly because they have a very difficult schedule ahead of them.
Throwback screen. The ball is knocked down, although the defender had his right arm, back on the back. That was Freeman. So it goes as an incompletion. It'll stop the clock at 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Freeman, a senior, outside linebacker on the strong side. because Laurinaitis gets so much ink, as he should. He's a great player, but Freeman has just been such a steady guy in this program, and like Laurinaitis, very good in the passing game, which is why it's mostly been he and Laurinaitis in during this game against Purdue when you have mostly defensive backs in the game.
Almost a one-handed stab, thrown a little high. Greg Orton, the intended receiver. Malcolm Jenkins with the cover, and you see the two of them walking along, actually having a little conversation right there. I would imagine I would hope that there's an immense amount of respect one for the other, because they're both tremendous football players.
And they've both competed today, and that's, at this point in the game, you have to respect somebody who never gives up, and neither of those guys has, especially Orton on the side he's on.
3rd down and 10. Painter zings it, has it, complete. That's Tardy. And Tardy will pick up the 1st down out to the 38. Marcus Freeman defensively.
And now Purdue looking at 2-11 down 2 touchdowns. Going to have to be very efficient. Just call it and run it. Don't worry about audibles. It takes too much time.
Got that play off quickly. Lobs it out. That Sheets gets by a tackler. Get him in space, and he's tough. And very wisely getting out of bounds to stop the clock at 1:54. Washington was hanging on for dear life.
And that's why coaches love those seniors who've been in the program. If that's a freshman running back, he probably tries to cut it up, and the clock continues to run, and you'd have to either use a timeout or get it off quickly if he was able to pick up the 1st down before it restarted.
Got another one complete. This is good for about 5. Just chipping away. Brandon Whittington this time on the receiving end.
And Ohio State has not been blitzing much. But one thing, and Jack Root just pointed out in my ear, that all the shotgun snaps have been low for Purdue. Maybe get a blitz when Painter has to look down.
Incomplete. You could see the coverage right there trying to find the seam. One reminder, tonight under the lights, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Bank of America 500. That is at Charlotte, and of course it's on ABC. Coverage begins tonight with NASCAR Countdown. That begins at 7 Eastern. 90 seconds left in our ball game. Sheets breaks it out. Tries to take it wide. Again, here's one of those youngsters that just gives you effort on top of effort. Not much he can do there because of being so undersized compared to those defensive linemen, and it's Gibson who hauled him down. It'll be 4th down, and the clock runs. We're about to go under 1 minute to play.
Yeah, that play was very costly against the clock. You said right at the snap that we were at 90 seconds, so that was more than 30 seconds eaten on a running play on 3rd and medium.
Got it complete. That's at the 36-yard line. Keith Smith.
Now, if you're Purdue down 2 touchdowns, you've got to start thinking about throws towards the end zone, because even if you're able to score, you still have to get an onside kick and get back on offense. So you've got to start thinking about your next possession as well.
You throw long, underthrow it, you might get a pass interference call. Who knows? I mean, you're at the 35 right now. You get it all the way down to the 20. Looking, gonna go long, and he throws it long instead of short.
Yeah, and he had Whittington underneath the coverage. Chekwa was over the top, so that ball should have been underthrown, and it's hard to tell if Whittington ran the proper depth of the route, but that's one I think you do underthrow, like we saw Pryor do earlier, and let Whittington come back and try to make a play, and like you said, may get that pass interference.
Well, so many times we see something like that happen, you think, wow, horrible throw by the quarterback, but actually it was a horrible route by the receiver. Far sideline gets this one out there, and a nice defensive play to stop the 1st down. Whittington made the catch at a timeout called by Purdue that stops the clock with 33 seconds left.
And here you have a 3rd and short. And Joe Tiller, with his last trip to the shoe, would not be surprised. Throw one to the end zone because obviously you're going to go through it on 4th down. What a wonderful career for Joe Tiller. He's headed off to the sunset after this season. All-time win leader here at Purdue. And it's really unbelievable. Before he got here, from 1984 until he got here in 1997, Purdue had 1 winning season and had been to no bowl games. It's really staggering the effect that Joe Tiller had on the Purdue football program.
I'll tell you, I'll never forget, I think, and he admitted probably the most exciting bowl win that they had was Drew Brees. They wound up having to play in the Alamo Bowl Kansas State, who got surprised in the Big 12 championship game. They came in as they were number 1 when they were beaten in the championship game, and they came in as the number 4 team in America. And everybody said, whew, mismatch, that'll be horrible. Well, it was a mismatch the other way because Drew Brees, Hollywood would not have scripted it as gaudy, but he took them right down the field, and they defeated a good K-State team. With clock running out at the time. 3rd down. Thrown a little bit behind the intended receiver, Tardy.
Now all you need is the 1st down because the clock will stop as they set the chain. So some type of slant route, throw it on time, maybe get a pass interference, let the clock stop if you pick up the 1st, then get ready, and then you have to, every shot has to be the end zone after that if you want to try to save some clock after an onside kick, if you're able to recover.
It's Tardy in motion. Pass had him open right across the middle, and he overthrows it, and that'll do it. Boy, they head for the exits here at the shoe with that one. 16-3. Ohio State's going to win this thing, but Ohio State is going to go into the record book as having scored 16 points, but not an offensive touchdown.
In such a difficult season so far for Joe Tiller in his last year. He did think about retiring at the end of last season, but you know, his loyalty, every time he's hired an assistant coach, he said, if you come here, I want you to give me a 3-year commitment before you leave if you're going to go take a better job. And 2 seasons ago, he had hired 6 new assistants, and he felt like he couldn't retire on them. If he asked them for a 3-year commitment, he was going to give them a 3-year, and he met with the athletic director, and that's when they came up with a plan to bring Danny Hope back from Eastern Kentucky as the head coach there, who had been an assistant. A lot of respect for Joe Tiller.
Well, now let's take a look at the Chevrolet players of the game.
Well, it's not that number 2. It's the other number 2 for
Malcolm
Ohio State.
Jenkins.
Wow.
Blocked punt, 4 tackles, also had an interception. And for the Butters, Anthony Haygood, 12 tackles, 11 of those were solo. He had some kind of afternoon. It was not a thing of beauty offensively, my friend.
And for Ohio State and everyone around the country wondering if they're going to be able to get back into the national championship conversation, well, with the schedule they have ahead of them, they could. The problem is offensively, Terrell Pryor, you can see his long face. He's just so dejected at his play, and I think when he looks at the film, the thing he's going to have to realize is what we've been talking about. Get out of your head. You know, you want to be a perfectionist, but just go with what you can do.
So the final score, Ohio State 16 and Purdue 3. It is a special teams touchdown on that blocked punt by Jenkins. Everything else field goals this afternoon, and of course the Butters on with 1 field goal of their own. So Ohio State with still a lot of work to be done. Joe Tiller says so long to the shoe. Last trip that he'll make in here. Final again, Ohio State 16-3. Winners over Purdue this afternoon here in Columbus.